Every sport has its legends from specific generations. When you think of the NBA, one of the first names that pops into your mind is Michael Jordan. But you've got other legends of his era, Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, legends of the current NBA era, Kobe Bryant, LeBron, Steph Curry. You have the same thing in the NFL. You think of football in the 1980s, you think of Joe Montana. 90s, you think Steve Young, Brett Favre, Jerry Rice. When you become a legend in your sport, there's a certain treatment that comes along with it. The franchise treats you special. The city where your legend was born reveres you. Two of the modern legends in the NFL are Tom Brady and Drew Brees. And the way they've been treated by their respective franchises couldn't be any more different. Think about this for a second. Where were the New England Patriots before Tom Brady? They were nothing. They existed for 61 years before Brady. 9 playoff appearances, 5 division titles, 2 Super Bowl appearances, no wins. So for 61 years, the Patriots were pretty much irrelevant, a non-factor. Since 2001 and the arrival of Tom Brady, 17 playoff appearances, 17 division titles, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 rings. So when I say Tom Brady built this franchise from the ground up, I'm speaking the truth. Drew Brees did the same for New Orleans. The Saints were a joke in the NFL before his arrival. In the 39 years before Drew Brees arrived in New Orleans, the Saints had 5 playoff appearances, 2 division titles, 0 appearances in the Super Bowl. Since 2006, 8 playoff appearances, 6 division titles, and the 1 Super Bowl ring. So we've got 2 legendary quarterbacks who built their franchises. And like I said before, the way their respective teams treat them could not be any more different. Drew Brees has been on a year-to-year contract the past 2 or 3 years. He doesn't get pressured from Sean Payton or Mickey Loomis in the offseason. They give him time to figure out whether or not he wants to come back the following year. They've said repeatedly that Drew Brees can play in New Orleans until he wants to play no longer. They respect what he's done, not only for the organization, but for their careers. They've also met him in the middle when it comes to money. He made $25 million in 2019, which is far under his market value. Not even among the top 10 in terms of quarterback salaries. But Brees takes less money to allow the Saints to sign other players to elevate the team around him. And that's exactly what they've done. Brees taking less money allowed them to pay Michael Thomas last offseason, Cam Jordan. Allowed them to hold on to Teddy Bridgewater. Go out and get guys like Demario Davis, Eli Apple, Janoris Jenkins. Bill Belichick and the Patriots, on the other hand, have done everything in their power to convince Tom Brady not to stay. I've been telling you guys for the past 2 months, I think there's real resentment on Belichick's side for Brady not retiring a couple of years ago. He had Jimmy Garoppolo waiting in the wings. He had his quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. And now he's watching that guy play in the Super Bowl. Like Drew Brees, Tom Brady's also taken less money. I think, actually, Tom Brady was one of the first guys to give his team a hometown discount. He made $23 million in 2019. We've talked about it a couple of times. Bill Belichick and the Patriots didn't get Tom Brady any help this season. His best receiver was Julian Edelman, who would be the number 2 receiver on most NFL teams. They went out and got Mohamed Sanu, the number 3 or number 4 receiver in Atlanta. Non-factor. Yeah, defensively the Patriots were good, but they couldn't score points. Brady was throwing to guys that couldn't run routes, couldn't create space. He was in the same situation as Aaron Rodgers, but at least Aaron Rodgers had Devontae Adams. And Rodgers is to blame for the lack of talent around him because he demanded that massive contract. Tom Brady gave New England a discount for his services, and they shit on him. There have been whispers the past year or so about the tension between Brady and Belichick. Unlike the Saints, who give Drew Brees time to make his decision on whether or not he's coming back, New England is pushing Brady to make a decision. It's being reported that the Patriots aren't going to wait until free agency begins in March to get an answer for Tom Brady. And their reasoning makes sense. Because last year, they were burned when Gronk decided to retire late in free agency. It caused them to miss out on signing free agent tight ends because by the time he made his decision, everybody was scooped up. So I get it from that perspective, from a business perspective. But this is Tom fucking Brady that we're talking about. A guy who has been over backwards for your organization. The guy who built this franchise. The guy who made Bill Belichick a fucking legend. Belichick was 41-55 before Tom Brady. One playoff appearance in 6 years. Tom Brady made him a coaching legend. For that reason alone, I feel like the Patriots should take a page from the Saints' notebook and allow Tom Brady to take his time making his decision. He's earned it. Plus, I think the Patriots already have their answer. Brady's house in Boston's for sale. His suite at Gillette Stadium has been cleared out. He's given no indication for the first time in his career that he wants to return to New England. Eli Manning announced his retirement on Friday. When you talk about legends from this modern era of the NFL, I don't feel like Eli Manning belongs in the conversation. The debate all week, and it will be debated for the next 5 years, has been, does Eli Manning belong in the Hall of Fame? There are differing views at what constitutes a Hall of Fame player. Some look at it from the perspective of, can you tell the NFL story without Eli Manning? Well, of course not. He's won 2 Super Bowls. It's impossible to tell the story of the NFL without mentioning him. Not to mention the fact that his last name is Manning. But if you go by that criteria, there are loads of players who belong in the Hall of Fame. You can't tell the story of the NFL without Ricky Williams, who the Saints basically mortgaged their entire 1999 draft to trade up and pick him. Is he a Hall of Famer? You can't tell the story of the NFL without mentioning Jim McMahon, who's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. Won his first Super Bowl with the Bears and that legendary defense. Is he a Hall of Famer? You can't tell the story of the NFL without mentioning Trent Dilfer, who won a Super Bowl in 2000 with the Ravens. Is he a Hall of Famer? The way I judge whether or not a guy is a Hall of Fame caliber player is to judge him across his entire career. Was he consistently great for a decade? Was he one of the best players at his position for his generation? You can't say either of those statements are true of Eli Manning. I can name 10 to 15 quarterbacks of this era that are better than Eli Manning. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Rodgers, Rivers, Wilson, Kurt Warner, Brett Favre. Hell, I'd even put Tony Romo ahead of Eli Manning. Eli Manning was never consistently great. 16-year playing career. He was never an All-Pro. Only 4 Pro Bowls. 6 playoff appearances. He's only had 7 winning seasons. He was consistently inconsistent. He ended his career with a .500 record, 117 and 117 as a starter. Does that sound like a Hall of Fame resume to you? It damn sure doesn't to me. You take away his name and put his career record and stats along with the 2 Super Bowls and put the name Kirk Cousins beside it. No one is voting him in. But because of who he is, his last name being Manning, he's going to get in. I'm not taking anything away from Eli Manning. He had a good career, but it wasn't great. It wasn't legendary. He was never elite at his position. I don't think Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer. All right, let's move on to the NBA. I talk about team chemistry a lot on this podcast. It's important whether we're talking about the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, doesn't matter. With a 53-man roster in the NFL, not all players are going to be close friends, or even friends for that matter. It's tough to spend time off the field with 53 guys. That's why you hear about starting quarterbacks taking the offensive line out to dinner, or the defensive front seven doing the same. But in the NBA, with only 13, 14, 15 guys on the roster, a lack of chemistry can be a major problem. When one player is upset about something, it can spread quickly around the locker room. Last season, 2 teams made the playoffs unexpectedly for the sole reason that they were a tight-knit group. I'm talking about the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Clippers. Fast forward to this year. The Nets trade away D'Angelo Russell, go out, get Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. There have been problems with Kyrie all season. The locker room isn't as close as it was last year. Kyrie Irving is quickly becoming the new Dwight Howard of the NBA. Problems in Cleveland, problems in Boston. Now we got problems in Brooklyn. But the Clippers are having the same problem in Los Angeles. Even with a 32-14 record, number 3 in the Western Conference, we keep hearing reports that there are real problems in the locker room. People always say winning cures everything. That's not necessarily true. I talked earlier this week on the podcast about the chemistry issues in the Clippers locker room. The Athletic published a report Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, confirming my suspicions. Multiple players are starting to complain about the preferential treatment given to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They're saying that the team isn't practicing as hard as it should be at this point in the season. Kawhi and Paul George are said to have a say in how and when the team practices. Preferential treatment for superstars has been going on in the NBA forever. This is nothing new. We talked earlier this week about LeBron James leaving on game day to go watch his son Bronny's basketball game in Boston, and how a guy like Kyle Kuzma wouldn't be allowed to do the same. But the difference with the Lakers is they are a tight group. So things like that can be easily overlooked. But with the Clippers, it's a bit different. Think about it. Guys like Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, these guys have been on this roster for years. They're used to doing things a certain way. Now all of a sudden, you bring in 2 superstar players, and the process has changed. Guys are questioning Kawhi's ability to be a leader. Kawhi is a quiet guy. Same with Paul George. There's a distance being created between these guys and the rest of this roster. And it's a real problem. Kawhi Leonard has never been a leader, nor do I think he wants to be. He was the young guy on the Spurs roster, followed the lead of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. In Toronto last year, Kyle Lowry was the leader of that team. For the first time in Kawhi Leonard's career, the role of being the leader is squarely on his shoulders. And it's just not in his DNA. Not everyone is cut out for it. You can say the same thing about guys like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. Just because you're a superstar talent doesn't mean that you're cut out to be a leader. Look at any leader. What traits do they have? Charismatic, not afraid to speak their mind, good communicators. Kawhi Leonard isn't any of those things. He's awkward. He's a loner. He isn't the guy that's going to organize team events off the court. This is a real problem for the Clippers. They share a building with a Lakers team that's number 1 in the West and enjoy playing together. You couldn't have 2 more opposite teams in terms of chemistry. The purpose of the regular season is to fix problems like this. Because once you get into the playoffs, these issues get magnified. Talent can only take you so far. Look at what happened last season with the Warriors. KD is unhappy. Doesn't feel like he's getting respect. And they have turmoil all season. They didn't enjoy playing together anymore. And they struggled. And it showed on the court. Injuries certainly didn't help. But even with a healthy KD and Clay, I don't think they were winning the finals. The good news for the Clippers is they have 3 months to figure this out. The bad news, with the type of personalities Kawhi and Paul George have, I don't think things are going to change. All right, that's all for today, guys. I'll be back Tuesday to recap the weekend. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Leave a 5-star rating on iTunes. Leave me a comment in the section below. Let me know what you think about Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame or the problems in Los Angeles with the Clippers. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Have a good weekend.